Originals episode 11, Apres Moi Deluge. We had a pretty good episode. It was actually a lot more emotional than I was expecting with the ending we had, and it was a fairly sad ending. Obviously, the main thing about this episode, we lost Davina in this episode, and she was killed. And sadly, the scene where they finish the harvest, no one is resurrected. None of the girls come back to life, and Sophie kind of breaks down because all this time she was working. Initially she didn't believe in the harvest, and then when it went through, she had it stopped, or it was stopped by Marcel, and over time she changed her mind and felt, well, I have to get my niece back, I have to finish this harvest. And even if Davina is actually killed off, she'll be resurrected along with the other three girls, and they'll all come back and everything will be fine. The witches will have their power again, I'll get my niece back. Marcel won't have to worry about losing Davina, and neither will Elijah or Klaus, even though Klaus was obviously more focused on Davina living because she would retain her power. But in this episode, I really loved, the dynamic of everything with Davina, of course, being the center as she always has been. But in this, it obviously hit its peak where her powers are getting out of control, and there was no stopping her. Initially it was just earthquakes, and then it was the wind, and then rain, and it would be fire, which they showed at the very end, where there's basically a trail of fire behind Marcel who was carrying her, and it was a really good scene. The ending where she puts her faith in Marcel, and he put his faith in Klaus, and the entire harvest, and she accepts her fate, and she decides, I'm gonna sacrifice myself because I do believe I'll be resurrected along with my friends. And when she was killed, and Sophie goes through the, I guess, chant or whatever you would call it, she says the final line, and she says it three times, and the girls don't wake up, and then she says, please, I beg you, and she cries, she breaks down, and everyone's really sad. Like, every single person was sad about it, and it makes sense because no one really wanted her to die. And Klaus, obviously, like I said, his entire motivation was to not have her dead because she was a weapon, and even if she was resurrected after the harvest, she wouldn't be a really useful weapon. But in that scene, he was, when Marcel was looking at him, initially I thought he would just be angry, and of course he was actually angry a little bit. But Klaus does go to see him back at the house, and he hugs him, like he hugs it out, and he says, I might seem like I don't understand your grief, but believe me, I do, because when I first left New Orleans, I thought you were dead, and I felt the same pain you're feeling now, so I do understand. And Klaus flat out apologizes because he kind of pushed Marcel to do this, as well as Rebecca and Elijah did, because they all eventually they realized it was like, hey, we have to do this because otherwise all of us are going to be dead. Like, we'll be alive, but we'll watch the entire city burn, and there's that's not why we're here. We're here to live the life we want to live. And everyone believes it, and then it kind of just blows up in their faces, and it's just depressing for everybody. They kind of just flat out killed this girl, and it seemed like for no reason. They did technically, they saved the city. Like, no matter how you look at it, they did save the city and pretty much every human that lived there, but they did kill off Davina, and she wasn't resurrected like everyone was hoping for. And Sophie, of course, didn't have her niece resurrected like she wanted. But we find out that the people who were resurrected, I would assume it was a guy. It was a guy and two girls. So I would assume the guy is a warlock, and the women are two powerful witches. And we find out that the reason Sophie wasn't able to gain power and become an elder from Celeste's bones when she dug her up is because they were never consecrated to begin with, which is what they thought. Maybe someone consecrated them ahead of time, and maybe put them back for just to make it seem like nothing happened. But we find out in the end of this episode that the person who's kind of her best friend, who she's been with throughout the entire season, who she kind of goes back and forth with, that is Celeste. And for some reason she brought back these three people, and now she has the power from the four girls. And I would assume with her being as powerful as she is, and her being the dark magic that Davina drew in all those different pictures, she's more than capable of containing all of that power within herself. And I'm really excited to see how she whether or not maybe she wasn't even dead. Maybe it was like she kind of killed herself temporarily or something with a spell, or she was dead and someone did resurrect her, and that was a part of her plan or something like that. Because she mentioned how people called her that, Sabine, she said like for a year now, so she hasn't really been alive for that long. So I'm definitely curious how they're gonna explain her backstory, and just how she kind of came into the fold. If she kind of just changed people's memories or something, because I feel like a year and a half isn't really long enough for her to just kind of be, in such a high place with the witches. But I don't really know all the details, of course. But I really love this episode. It kind of seemed like it could have been a season finale with the way it ended. I mean, they killed off a character and then revealed the fact that one of the side characters is actually, Elijah's old witch girlfriend, who is incredibly powerful and also dark. And she brings in three other witches who have some plan, like they've obviously been dead for a long time because they're all in, old clothing, aside from, I believe, the oldest woman who does know who she is, at least by the name Sabine. And so the other two people have been dead for, decades since, um, I want to say like the woman, I want to say like 20s, and the guy 20s, or like 1910s, 1910 type of stuff. So they've been dead for, nearly 100 years or more, if not, but I'm just really excited to see how that plays out. But it was definitely a good episode. Really sad to see Davina go. I liked the actress who played her. I liked her character in general. I thought she she was the pivot of the show. She was the center, and she was kind of the cause of all these different dynamic events happening. And with her gone, we're gonna see a huge change in the series, because it won't be, we all want to get this one person to achieve our goals. Now it's gonna be that it's, once again, it's gonna be back to basics. I think, where it's gonna be witches versus vampires, and I'm definitely excited to see just how things go with Elijah finding out that, Sabine is actually Celeste, because of course that has to happen at some point, and maybe they'll have it where she actually changes her hair around and stuff, and she kind of looks like her more. But I don't know if she was the actual actress, from the flashback episode when she was in the tub and stuff with Elijah. So, if they show those flashbacks again, maybe I'll realize it was her. But I think it's just a completely different actress, and that would be why, Elijah, even though Elijah never actually met her, it would kind of make sense why, when Sophie dug up her body, she didn't say, like, oh, this is Sabine. So I think she's either in someone's body, or she flat out, used this spell to just change the way she looks. But this was a great episode. Like I said, really sad to see Davina go, just because it's always sad when a character gets killed off on a show. But they did it really well, and it made it even worse because she accepted her fate, and she thought, she was kind of pumped up to believe she would come back, and that's what made it even sadder, because the entire episode and just the entire series so far, she'd been fighting against this, and then eventually it's like, you can destroy the whole city if we don't do this. I believe, and everyone ended up believing, like, we're gonna do this and everything's gonna be fine. And she did, she kind of got sucked right into that too, and she ended up dying and not coming back. So it was really sad, but it was really, really well done. And I cannot wait for next week's episode to see just how things pick up, with this being, a little bit after the middle of the season. But comment below, let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Favorite parts, least favorite parts, and definitely tell me, what do you guys think Celeste is planning with, the two witches and the warlock? Where do you guys think that's gonna go? So comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.